What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am here with NPL Season 6, Week 12, the final week of the season, against Moxie, Infernape, and the Baltimore Braviaries. This is a man I have never once beaten in my draft league career in 3 attempts, so this is actually the 4th attempt, and we're going to try to get that first W against him this week, as if I win this game, I am 100% guaranteed to make the playoffs with a chance of getting as high as the number 3 seed in my conference, which that's pretty good considering the fact that at one point in the season we were sitting at a 3-5 record. Right now sitting at a nice 6-5 record with our 3-game winning streak, and if we can win this game we'll advance to a 7-5 record, hopefully with a pretty nice differential as well. So that's obviously the plan moving forward. Let's take a look at the matchup and see what happens, as even if I do lose this game, one more thing to note, even if I do lose this game, I do still have a chance of making playoffs, as all I need to have happen is for Togevoir to beat Crobat for the win with any differential, or for Crobat for the win to beat Togevoir by a score of 5-0 or better. So I have several scenarios that will get me into the playoffs. That's obviously the ultimate goal with this week, but beating Blake on my own means that I'm guaranteed in and don't have to rely on anyone else, so we'll try to make that happen. But looking at the matchup, Blake, Moxie, and Infernape has Greninja, which is Z-eligible, Victini, which is Z-eligible, Nidoqueen, Mega Gallade, Salamence, which is Z-eligible, Bisharp, Mimikyu, Ditto, Electivire, Pelipper, Aerodactyl, and Leavanny. So this draft is very clunky, and that's not really his fault, I would say, as Blake was one of the fill-in coaches. He filled in for Gator after Gator left the league, and as a result, he saw some holes in Gator's team and wanted to try to patch them up a little bit with trades. It's pretty hard to make a perfect team with trades, so given the circumstances, he did end up with several really nice threats on his team. Most importantly, threats to my team being the Mega Gallade and the Victini, as if you look at my roster that you can see in front of you, I have absolutely nothing for either of them. So defensively, I'm not going to be switching in very well, period, against him, as Victini can simply run a coverage combination of fire, electric, and grass and hit my entire team, not quite super effectively, but hard enough neutrally to where I cannot switch in, period, without being too KO'd. So that puts me in a really bad position immediately for sure, as he can just run something like a special Life Orb Victini and just tear a hole through my team. He can even run an Expert Belt Victini and do a lot of work that way, or if he wants to be that guy and bring a Scarf Victini, that's always an option as well. All three of those are very, very threatening against my team. I'm going to have to try to design a team that doesn't lose to Victini outright, but quite frankly, I don't really have many resources to do that either, so that's quite a chore in its own right. But also the Mega Gallade, with the fact that it is bulky enough naturally to be able to run bulky sets and still be really threatening against me, both because of its speed tier and its powerful physical attack, it's a huge issue for me to deal with. I only have things that can basically kind of check it. I have 3 things, well, 2 things that can outspeed it without Choice Scarf, those being the Talonflame and the Mega Lopunny, both of which are pretty good against this team, admittedly, but if I'm going to outpace it in any other way, it has to be with a Choice Scarf, which, I don't know if you guys kind of noticed throughout this season, I'm not a huge fan of Choice Scarf, just because I don't like being restricted to one move without any sort of power boost, but even so, Choice Scarf is actually going to be a necessity in this match, because of how threatening Mega Gallade is to my team, especially after it gets up a boost, as Mega Gallade does have access to both Bulk Up and Will-O-Wisp, which really hinders most of my most likely responses to it, as most of those responses are physical attacking in nature and obviously aren't going to deal well with Bulk Up and or Will-O-Wisp. So Mega Gallade Victini, that combination absolutely destroys me. Building around that will be very, very hard, but I will talk a little bit about my game plan on that here soon when we get to the team building segment of this video. But other notable threats on his team, Salamence is obviously a threat because of the Z-Fly capabilities, as that is a Z-eligible Pokemon. He can simply run Dragon Dance plus Z-Fly and net a kill, and there's not a whole lot I can do about that anyways. And honestly, Pelipper is kind of annoying against my team as well, as bulky Pelipper, it's not really an offensive threat, obviously, but it does stop a lot of my team. It stops Metagross. It forces me to run electric coverage if I bring Metagross. It quite honestly stops Azumarill if it's like a Rocky Helmet set with some way to damage me, like a Hurricane will do a lot of damage to Azumarill. And it's not 2-hit KO'd by Jolly Lopunny unless I run Thunder Punch as well. So Pelipper's actually pretty good against my team defensively, as well as that Nidoqueen, which is always a threat. Doesn't matter who you're against. Nidoqueen is always going to be good. Fortunately, I do have something called Gothitelle that can deal with that pretty well, and I don't think he can afford Shed Shell, so I definitely have ways to deal with the Nidoqueen, but Even so, he definitely has some threats to my team, especially offensively. Now let's go ahead and hop on over to the team builder real quick, and I'll show you what I decided to bring. And I'll start with the first 4 mods, then I have a little bit of a story to tell on the last 2, as it's kind of an interesting situation this week on this team. So first things first, we do have the Mega Lopunny, and this was just something that was going to come immediately. It's very, very good against him overall. The combination of Ice Punch, Frustration, and Fighting coverage it hits his whole team neutrally. Obviously, fighting normal coverage for Mega Lopunny always hits every team neutrally, but adding on Ice Punch on there prevents a Salamence from setting up in my face. I almost said Mega Salamence. Thank God that's not allowed. That would be a little bit broken, just a little bit. But that combination does do a lot to him for sure. I decided for Drain Punch over High Jump Kick in this game because the only thing I'm really going to click High Jump Kick on is the Bisharp, and obviously I don't really need High Jump Kick to OHKO Bisharp, so that combination does suffice here. Frustration over Return for the Ditto. I feel like if he brings Ditto, he's going to be max happiness to try to... he's probably not going to think about switching to 0 happiness in case I bring Frustration Lopunny. It's kind of a mind game 50-50, but I'm pretty sure he will stick with max happiness if he does bring Ditto. And then Fake Out just ensures that I'll be able to always beat Mimikyu. I can always check Mimikyu with Fake Out plus Frustration, as that combination, 1, flinches him off after the Fake Out and pops the Disguise, as well as knocks him out with the Frustration afterwards. So overall, very, very solid against him. It's a nice late game sweeper as well as an opener for me in this game. Now next up is the Thunders. This is my dedicated Scarfer that I already hinted toward earlier with Dual Stab and Thunderbolt and Hidden Power Flying, as I really need super effective coverage for the Gallade. Still can't OHKO Gallade with this thing. Honestly, none of my Scarfers can OHKO Mega Gallade. I could try to run a Scarf to Azumarill. That would OHKO Gallade, but it doesn't outspeed Mega Gallade, so that's not really useful here. I could run something like a Scarf Nidoking. That can't OHKO Mega Gallade. I could run, I guess, Scarf Metagross. I'm not even sure if that outspeeds, but even so, I don't think that OHKOs either. So none of my Scarfers can OHKO Mega Gallade, which is kind of an issue, and for that reason, Talonflame was definitely something that I considered in this matchup, but I was not able to justify hazard removal, and it's really hard for me to bring Talonflame without hazard removal. It's just a very, very risky thing to do, as if you just lose half your Talonflame, you might as well just not even bring it. That's just kind of my opinion on Talonflame, as it's not the broken Mon that it was in Gen 6. It's not even close. So without hazard removal, it's simply not worth bringing in this generation. So that's why I decided against it, but overall, this is really effective against him as well, especially if I'm able to get rid of his electric immunities, as Thunderbolt spam is very, very, very good against him once I believe the Nidoqueen and Electivire are his only ways of not taking damage from Thunderbolt. So if I'm able to remove one or both of those, depending on how many he brings, he's obviously bringing at least one, then this is definitely an easy win condition this week, as Psychic will also hit the Nidoqueen, and U-Turn will allow me to gain momentum on the incoming Electivire or the Nidoqueen, and trap either of them with Gothitelle, which will free up my Thundurus, and if it's the Nidoqueen, it also frees up my Lopunny a little bit as well. So the combination of Mega Lopunny, Thundurus, and the Gothitelle that you can see is the offensive core this week. One of my offensive cores. I have another little offensive core in the back that I'll talk about here soon, but that combination I feel is going to be what is most effective in this matchup, and we'll just kind of see how that goes. But on Gothitelle, Thunderbolt for the Pelipper and Aerodactyl to try to get rid of his hazard removers. Or rather just to get rid of his flying mons. Hidden Power Fighting for the Bisharp with Colbur Berry, kind of a lure. Psychic, obviously, for the Nidoqueen and just general coverage against his team. And Foul Play for the Victini, as well as other setup threats like these Salamence. If he decides to try to Dragon Dance in my face, that's not going to work out too well for me here, as I am also running a little bit of speed on this just to outpace a min speed Nidoqueen by a little bit. I don't really expect too much speed on Nidoqueen. I didn't really think it made much sense for him to try to creep anything, especially because if he brings Nidoqueen, it's more likely to be a bulky set, so he's going to want to invest as much as possible in his bulk. So this should allow me to outpace all Nidoqueens that he might potentially bring, as well as generally chew up special hits from the Nidoqueen, as with the Calm Nature, I can really take any hit with relative ease, especially coming from Nidoqueen. So it's just nice to have that extra special bulk there. So that's that core. Then we have another switch into Nidoqueen, as well as my lone response to Victini. My only real switch into Victini, as this is the only thing on my team that can take a hit from Victini and then take a second hit, as long as he doesn't, of course, fire off an Energy Ball on my switch. And as I am holding the Rendo Berry, I'm also sticky hold on this just to make sure that I can't have my Rendo Berry knocked off. I just make sure I have that one chance to deal with Victini. And the combination of Earth Power Ice Beam hits his entire team very hard, the exception being Pelipper, but I do have Toxic for that, as well as Recover just to stay alive. The defense investment on this does allow me to survive a +2 Life Orb Play Rough from a I believe a Jolly Mimikyu, I think Adamant Mimikyu actually. So this is another check to Mimikyu as well, just in case that thing gets carried away. I know it gets Woodhammer. I don't really think it's going to bring Woodhammer. I would more expect to see things like Shadow Sneak, Shadow Claw, and Play Rough, as that has better general coverage against my team. And if he has Woodhammer in addition to that, that means he doesn't have Swords Dance, which makes it much less of a threat. So I think this is pretty good against him overall, and should serve as a nice pivot around his team, and hopefully save me from the menace that is Victini. Now, we're going to talk about these next two a little bit. So the next mon is Metagross. Okay, so in my team building, the original draft of this team, as you can see, this is an Agility Metagross with Meteor Mash, Earthquake, and Thunder Punch, and a Steelium Z. So the original draft of this team had Trick Room Metagross with the same, well, with Meteor Mash, Earthquake, and Explosion, and the EVs were Max Attack, Max Defense. And the game plan with that was to set up a Trick Room, maybe take a couple mons out along the way if there's things that are weak to a Z Meteor Mash or an Earthquake. But if he has something like a Pelipper that can resist both of those, then I can just explode on it, go into my Azumarill, which is the next mon, and essentially pick up several kills under Trick Room, as he has absolutely nothing to deal with that. Now the problem with that, there's a big problem with that, Metagross doesn't learn Trick Room, and I learned this, approximately 20 minutes before the battle. So in all my mock battles, I was using this team that had a Trick Room Metagross setting up the sweep for Azumarill. The plan was working essentially flawlessly every single time. It's like, okay, this team is great. Turns out it's illegal. So I had to change my team at the last minute. It was the last day to do my battles. And, yeah, so that happened. And I'm not going to lie, it did impact the game significantly, and I will try to highlight that as we go through the battle so you understand where my actual prep was and what would have happened if my actual prep was legal. It's totally on me for getting that wrong, though. Like, the issue was that I was doing all my mock battles in the custom format here because I have Mega Lopunny, and I didn't really want to be on the Draft League server because people can join the battles without me really knowing, potentially, especially staff on the server. So I wanted to be on the main server under an alias. But the Draft League format isn't on the actual server, so it doesn't check to see under custom game if Metagross can actually learn Trick Room. But whenever I tried to bring the team on the Draft League format for the actual battle, it just told me Trick Room is not allowed on Metagross. I'm like, what? So, yeah, that was a thing that happened that I had to try to fix last minute, just rush to finish it. And my easy solution to it was to just run Agility on Metagross instead, and then, of course, give myself more speed instead of bulk, just trying to make this a late game cleaner, potentially, as the combination of Meteor Mash, Earthquake, and Thunder Punch is still very good against his team if I can get up the Agility. And I can set up on the likes of potentially the Mega Gallade as well as the Pelipper, as long as he doesn't get a burn with either of those, as well as the Electivire, as Electivire can't OHKO me with anything. So those are all things that I can set up on. I feel like some of those, or most of those, are probably going to come. But it does really hurt to not have that extra bulk, as well as have that Trick Room to support the Azumarill, which was a 4-attack Splash Plate set with a lot of bulk, obviously, and just really good coverage moves against this team. So the combination of Trick Room Metagross into Azumarill would have won the game. Like, it would have just won. I can almost guarantee it would have won the game because he just has no way to really deal with that kind of combination. But unfortunately, it's not legal, so whoops. And we're going to deal with just a standard offensive Azumarill. It's going to be slow, but it's still effective against this team. Should be able to net me a couple kills at least just because of its offensive prowess against him. He really doesn't have ways to switch into Azumarill, but we'll just kind of see what happens on that. So now you kind of have a little bit of insight as to what the heck happened before we got into this battle, and it's going to explain a little bit of how this battle goes down, as I'm just going to spoil. It's kind of an ugly game. It's pretty ugly on my end, and let's just talk about team preview a little bit. So he decides to bring the Nidoqueen, the Mega Gallade, the Victini, Evire, Mimikyu, and the Pelipper. So first and foremost, I see very little along the lines of responses to Mega Lopunny. I'm expecting probably the Nidoqueen, probably the Pelipper is the Mega Lopunny response, as from full health, as long as he maintains rocks off the field, then he is going to be able to always wall out my Mega Lopunny because I do not have Thunder Punch, so he can always roost up. Expect him to have like a Rocky Helmet or something. He can always roost up on that and essentially wall it out endlessly. That said, I'm expecting his Nidoqueen to be his rocker. Mega Gallade is probably a bulky setup set. Victini, I'm expecting Expert Belt or Life Orb with the coverage moves of Energy Ball, some Fire move, Bolt Strike, and then probably U-Turn, as he really doesn't need anything else. Electivire, not really. I didn't really expect to see Electivire. I guess it has good coverage against my team. It's just not really good Pokemon. That's my opinion on it, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see his thought process on why to bring Electivire here. And then Mimikyu is just really nice to save himself from potential setup threats. So I understand the concept behind his team, the team preview, or at least I think I do. There's some surprises in there, but that's no surprise given that we're playing Moxie and Infernape, the king of innovation. So you'll see a little bit of cool stuff here in this battle for sure. But the team preview is pretty ugly. Honestly, it's pretty ugly with what I actually brought, because the setup opportunities are pretty limited for the Metagross, as kind of like I already mentioned before, the only things I can really potentially set up on are the Gallade and the Evire and kind of the Pelipper, as long as I dodge the burn. But as you see here in this battle, there aren't really many opportunities to set up on Electivire, because it tends to just Volt Switch out or just not be in because it's not a good Pokemon. And the Mega Gallade actually is carrying Will-O-Wisp, which is really, really good against the team that I have here. It would not be as good against this team if I had Trick Room on Metagross, and I'll explain more about that when we get there. But the Pelipper is actually offensive as well, so that's not a great thing for my Metagross to set up on either, as I take a lot from Surf under Rain. So there's not many opportunities to set up with Metagross, making Metagross actually not very useful in this game at all. But we'll just kind of see how that unfolds as the battle moves forward. So let's go ahead and hop on into this and see how this went down. As I'm going to lead off with my, as he leads off with Electivire, I'm leading off with my Lopunny. This is a very free fake out for me, as he decides to go into his Nidoqueen, and he's going to take a pretty decent amount of damage from this. That damage calc reveals that he's not fully invested in defense, but he's definitely defensive. It's kind of a weird EV spread though, as you'll see on this next turn. So my next play is kind of tricky. I'm definitely expecting him to go for Stealth Rock here. There's still a chance that he's a Shed Shell variant, or even a Pyapa Berry variant, I believe. I don't think he's... Oh, he's Black Sludge, rather. So my play here, I thought in the moment, was to just go for a return here, as the Stealth Rocks are pretty obviously coming, unless he is fearing Gothitelle, in which case he might actually double out into something like his Mega Gallade, or into, not necessarily Mega Gallade, more something like Mimikyu, I guess would be a good response to Gothitelle, or maybe even the Victini, just trying to net a free kill against my Gothitelle switch in. So my thought was, because Blake is a very aggressive player, that he would try to make a double here and not risk his Nidoqueen immediately. But and in addition to that, I would prefer to get a little bit more damage on Nidoqueen to ensure that once Gothitelle's in, it is killing the Nidoqueen and not taking any more unnecessary damage. So my play, in my opinion, was to stay in and click Frustration, as it does a decent amount of damage again, revealing that he is now definitely going to be in range of the Gothitelle as he puts out his Stealth Rock. Now, again, he is obviously in range of Gothitelle. This appears to be one of his most important ways to slow down Thundurus. This appears to be one of his most important ways to check, potentially even check my Metagross. He has a lot of ways to check Metagross, but really to also just having this around for the Thundurus seems nice. I really expected, again, for him to try to switch into Gallade, but in hindsight, really, I feel like, I don't know... Obviously, the play is not to stay in here. Like, you guys who know what you're doing, you're watching this, you're like, okay, why? He has no reason to stay in on this turn. Why don't you go hard Gothitelle? Why don't you go hard Gastrodon? Both of those are great switches to Nidoqueen. I agree. I don't know what I was doing in the moment, but I actually decided to stay in with the Lopunny and do a little more damage to the Nidoqueen. He reveals to be Poison Point, and then he goes for Super Fang, and now my Lopunny is weakened and poisoned. So, yeah, that was a very poorly executed early game on my end. Very poorly executed, but I guess now I have to live with it. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go ahead and switch out, knowing that I've already screwed up. I gotta try to rebound a little bit and hope he doesn't go for another Super Fang or something. Maybe he goes for a especially offensive move. I try to go in my Gothitelle. He makes a nice play, goes for the Super Fang, and then he actually outspeeds my Gothitelle as well. So I don't know what the heck this Nidoqueen set is. I thought I had plenty of speed on this to be able to outpace the most likely Nidoqueen set, but Blake is crazy. I don't understand his building here. This will be definitely interesting to check in his team builder, but he does outspeed my Gothitelle. He's able to hit me with a combination of Super Fang plus Sludge Wave, meaning my Gothitelle is also weakened into Revenge range, and now I basically lost two Pokemon, or severely weakened two Pokemon, to take out a Nidoqueen that I could have just killed on turn 1 or turn 2 by hard switching into Gothitelle versus this thing, and kept my Lopunny healthy and not poisoned. So very, very poorly executed early game in this game. That was bad. But let's just continue here, as down's going to go the Nidoqueen. As it goes into Victini, I can't switch out. Down goes the Gothitelle, and what I'm going to be able to do now is go into my Gastrodon. And this is a free Earth Power for me, as I know I can take any Energy Ball and potentially take a second one if he's not very invested. He gets a crit, actually, with this, which is kind of bad, as I'm going to be able to go for the Earth Power, but because of that crit, I'm actually in range of a second Earth Power as well. That said, I don't see any opportunities at all for my for my Gastrodon to be able to recover unless it is against the Pelipper, and I also don't really want to switch anything else into Victini anyways. Nidoqueen is gone, which is really the main thing besides Victini that this Gastrodon was designed for, so what I'm actually going to do is just expect him to try to overpredict, as that's kind of what Blake tends to do. That's why his record's not amazing this season. He's made some really unnecessary plays, and I was trying to catch him here making another one of those unnecessary and unsafe plays, maybe trying to predict something like my Azumarill coming in, maybe something like my Metagross, something even like my Thundurus coming in, and going for a fire move here. So what I decided to do here was actually to stay in and click Earth Power again, as he actually goes for U-turn. So he did make an aggressive play here, but not the aggressive play that I was expecting him to make, as I'm going to go for Earth Power, and it's going to do a whole 0 to this Gallade, revealing that it's definitely a very bulky set, as now expecting him to maybe go for a Bulk Up or a Swords Dance. I'm going to go ahead and recover up here just to give me a glimmer of a chance later in the game, but honestly it's not looking good at all, as if I was a Trick Room Metagross I definitely could win this game, but I'm not Trick Room at all, so what I'm actually going to have to do is go into my Azumarill here. When otherwise, let's talk about this. So otherwise, if I was a Trick Room Metagross like I had initially planned and prepped to be, what I could have done is I could have sacked off something else, actually probably sacked off Gastrodon if I'm being honest, and then go into my Metagross from there, and what I'd be able to do at that point is I would be able to go straight for the Trick Room. Soon, as you'll see on this turn, he reveals to be a Will-O-Wisp Gallade, so he would certainly go for Willow against my Metagross as I go for Trick Room. That would allow me to go straight for an Explosion, and what that would do is that would let me get a free switch into my Azumarill under Trick Room, and look at his Fairy Resist at this point in the game. The Pelipper is offensive, it's 2-hit KO'd, and it does not have any way to do serious damage to my Azumarill outside of Hurricane, which I think would do, oh, I don't know, Hurricane would do probably like 60 to 70% if it's max attack, max special attack. I'm not actually sure, but it wouldn't do that much at all. I guess I'll pause briefly as there's a few things to talk about here at the end, but the Pelipper wouldn't be able to do very much to me. At the very best case scenario for him, what he would be able to do is he would be able to weaken me with Pelipper as he sacks off his Pelipper. Then he would have to go into his Mimikyu to be able to take me out, requiring him to lose his disguise. And at that point, if I played this properly, I would have my Mega Lopunny still healthy and unpoisoned, and I would be able to essentially clean up the rest of his team, as the Gallade would be sufficiently weakened into range of stuff. The Victini is already in range of Frustration, and the Electivire I'm not exactly threatened by, even though I do also have other things to deal with it. So I definitely feel like I could have won this game. One, if I played better, but more importantly, if I actually been able to use the team I prepped with. So that's what kind of sucks about this whole situation, as he's going to go into the Electivire here. So I just fire off a Frustration, knowing that this is really one of the only things on his team that I can still set up on. I'm actually not going to try to take him out with another return, as he does appear to maybe be in range. I'm just going to go for the Drain Punches. That allows me to get some health back, potentially living a Volt Switch here, and still leaving the Evire alive to try to set up on with my Metagross, as he's going to go into his Pelipper. Now here, you know, what's my play here? I guess I just have to try to attack it and then set up on Pelipper with my Metagross, as maybe I'll have a glimmer of getting this down to a 2 or a 3-0 by doing that, but he's actually an Agility Pelipper, so I can't even set up on this with Metagross. So again, Trick Room would have been good against this kind of set as well. So I'm going to go into my Gastrodon just to scout if he has the HP Grass, as if he doesn't have HP Grass, then I might be able to stall this thing out, dodge some Hurricanes, and maybe be able to still bring this back. But he does have the HP Grass, not going to be able to stall this thing out, but I can stall him out of rain turns, and at least bring down the differential a little bit, as now on the last turn of rain, I'm going to go into my Metagross, expecting the HP Grass again, and this will allow me to take a Surf outside of the rain. I would go for an Agility here, but I probably don't outspeed this thing, as I don't have that much speed investment. And I'm going to be able to Thunder Punch and take this thing out. He reveals the Wakan Berry, still doesn't help him too much, as now he's going to go into his Victini. Obviously I can't switch here, as he's going to go for the V-Create and take out my Metagross, and now I can go into my Gastrodon, and I still have I think I'm guaranteed actually to survive this Energy Ball, as the Calc is saying that he's not invested in special attack at all, so I think that was a guaranteed live. If he had a little bit of investment, he had a chance to take me out, but I don't think he did, as he had revealed several moves, and I think he was physically offensive with very, very little special attack investment, if any. So unfortunately, we are going to lose this game 3-0, and you know, it just comes down to misplaying the early game very badly, but even if I didn't misplay the early game, I don't think I was going to win, because of the fact that I did not have a functional team. This wasn't a functional team. I didn't practice with this edited team at all after making the Trick Room Metagross swap. So that's partially on me, I guess. It's totally on me for not actually checking the move pool before trying to get into the battle, as if I had actually prepped and practiced with a team that was legal, I think this could have been a different story for sure, as I definitely could have won this matchup given the tools that I had. That said, obviously Victini and Mega Gallade were my demise in this game because I had insufficient prep for them, and that prep was insufficient because of not having because of those crucial components of the Metagross Azumarill core not really being effective at all with not having Trick Room. So it's crazy how one little change can really mess things up, but we're going to move on from that. So we're 6-6. We lost this game. We dropped 3 differential points. We were at +9. Now we are at +6. Okay? If you recall back to the beginning, we talked about the playoff scenario. Either I win the game and I'm guaranteed in the playoffs, or if Togevoir beats Crobat for the win by any differential, or if Crobat for the win 5-0s or 6-0s Togevoir, then we're still in the playoffs. The result of that game, spoilers, if you haven't seen that game, click off the video now. Okay, the result of that game was a victory for Togevoir. So you know what that means. We're in the playoffs, boys. So we are back in the playoffs for NPL Season 6, and we have none other than Iron Flash Gaming in round 1 of the playoffs, the man who kicked our butts in week 4 because of Mega Heracross being a Lottie counter. And we're going to get a little bit of revenge this time, as we definitely can beat him. We haven't been playing that well this season. I'm the first one to admit it. It has not been my best season of Draft League play, not even close. But I think I have a chance. There's definitely a chance to do this. And worst case scenario, we'll make it a good game. And if we lose, we lose. We're going to go out swinging. But I'm definitely excited for this opportunity to get a little bit of revenge after not giving him my best performance in our first matchup. So you can be looking forward to a round 1 playoff game here in a couple weeks. We're going to have a little bit of a lull here between week 12 and the playoffs, as we do have one makeup game to finish up, which was the original game between Joey and Gator that never took place. So we have Shoddy and Blake playing in week 13 in the makeup game, and then we do have the playoffs starting the week after that. You might expect, you should expect the upload probably the week following, because the week in 2 weeks is the week of March Madness, so we're going to definitely be focused on that during that week. But then you can expect the round 1 playoff uploads the week following, and that's about all there is to it. So Toronto is back in the playoffs despite a pitiful performance in this game, but it's okay. So we're moving on. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in round 1 of the playoffs. Peace.